Hey, everybody, welcome to Called Up the Prospects podcast. I am Chris Peters, joined as always by Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects, and we are here to talk prospects because that's what we do here on Called Up the Prospects podcast. And Cam, we are also presented by our friends at Wonderful Pistachios, and you should get snacking, get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. We thank Wonderful Pistachios for their support of this fine podcast and our bellies as well. So that is always good. Cam, my friend, how the heck are you? It is crazy time right now. Everything's happening. We got a lot to talk about. We can't waste much time, but how the heck are you?
I'm good, buddy. It's every week's crazy time now, right? Now we got NHL playoffs kicking off. We got U18s. We got drafts happening. This is my favorite time of year.
Absolutely. I mean, we're a few weeks away from the draft lottery. We're only a week away from the U18 World Championship, which we are going to talk about today. But so much has been happening in a condensed period of time. We'll talk about it at the top of the show with some prospect rapid fire. We'll talk a little bit about the Calder Trophy race, which is has been interesting throughout the season, and will probably be a rookie class we talk about for a long time. We'll also talk a little bit about NHL Central Scouting and the list that they released, their final rankings for North American international skaters, North American international goaltenders. I have a few thoughts on that, and then we will get to previewing where Cam and I will both be next week, and that is the U18 World Championship, one of the big draft events of the year. USA and Canada will have very interesting rosters. Sweden will have a very interesting roster. We're getting some of the other international rosters as well. A bit of a down year for the Euro class, but still there is going to be some real intrigue, and it's also the U18 Worlds is becoming a great scouting event for the following year's draft as well, with a number of underagers and guys that are late birth dates that will be very, very interesting to follow. But Cam, let's start it off with the biggest prospect story of last week, and that was the debut of Ivan Demidov. I mean, this was electric against the Chicago Blackhawks, against Connor Bedard, against a backdrop of needing to get into the playoffs for the Montreal Canadiens, and they did manage to clinch their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But Demidov had a goal and an assist, and he was everything everyone wanted him to be, and probably more in that debut. What did you make of his first foray into the National Hockey League?
I'm just curious if you would like to amend your take from last week on him hitting the back of the net more than once. I'm just giving you that opportunity now to join this side of the ledger.
I might have to, honestly.
You have to now, right?
Well, yeah, and I think the thing is, Cam, you said, what's the transition going to be? How is he going to handle it? And the Blackhawks weren't, a great opponent. They're kind of beaten down and not really, it wasn't a shock for me to see him perform in that game. But what really struck me was just the incredible poise that he had throughout that game. The goal that he scored with the fake shot going into the backhand, it was beautiful. It was poetry in motion. And the confidence that we knew he had. I think we saw that all year. But now, yeah, I mean, I think I would probably have to amend it. There was always so much unknown about Demidov. Didn't play in the KHL last year. How much can we assess his performance and his production against the MHL? How much can we really read into that? And here we are now seeing him for the first time. And boy, does it look really good if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan.
Does it ever? Did you, and like maybe my favorite thing was after the game when a reporter asked him like, hey, were you surprised that you were able to score a goal and get an assist so quickly? And he kind of just chuckles and goes, not really. Like the kid is just oozing confidence, and you just love to see that. That's like superstar mentality stuff, right? Like he expected himself. He has that expectation. He's like, no, that's what I do, right? Like this is what I do, and that's what I'm expecting myself to do. So yeah. I think it's terrific for hockey to potentially have another superstar. It's terrific for hockey to have a superstar in Montreal, to have Montreal back in the playoffs. All good things for the NHL, and I'm here for it for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is. It's the NHL is more fun when Montreal is rocking, and they are certainly one of the most engaged fan bases. If you look at any story we could write or anything we could do or talk about, if we are talking about a Hab, it's probably going to be the most popular thing. That's just the fact of life. But we'll have much more on Ivan Demidov, and I cannot wait to see next year's Calder Trophy odds because they are going to be out of control. And I am sure Mr. Demidov will be right at or near the top. He'll be at the top. But anyway, other things that happened last week. Western Michigan wins the national championship. It's now almost a week ago, but yes, you were on it. I certainly was a believer, yet I didn't pick them to win. But after watching them play, it's like, how could anyone have picked against them? They look like a team of destiny. They played a heavy style. It's like if you're, one of the things that Western does so well is they develop players. They get guys to play a certain way. And I think that way is something that would be successful in the NHL. Tim Washy, their captain, kind of that personified. He signs a free agent deal with Anaheim, gets in his first NHL game already this past week. There are so many things to like. Hampton Slakinski, Alex Bump, who didn't have any points, but still was just this. He was all over the puck. The fact that they had a number of key players that have been with the program for so long, like Wyatt Shingothi, having a breakthrough in the championship game, not having a super productive season. But Western Michigan, this feels like it's only the beginning for this program. They got a new building on the way. They've now done this. As you were watching those games and as you were seeing kind of the chatter, it feels like we've got a new team to really keep an eye on. They also have like 4 guys out of the transfer portal already that are going to be big time players for them. So things are percolating in Kalamazoo, are they not?
They are, and Kalamazoo, love that name too. But no, they
So
were
good.
smothering, right? Like you nailed it last week where you said, whoever wins that Denver Western Michigan game, that's the kind of the best 2 teams remaining. That's the championship game. And they made it close. Denver had that comeback, but they just smothered BU in that final game. Like they just, and Boston University had some real assets too, some real guys that could break games open, and they just couldn't break it open. And I'm just going to take a little detour here, real quick, off script a
Absolutely.
bit, just because BU makes me think about it. It's like, what's Vancouver doing with Tom Wielander here? All these college kids are coming out. They're all signing their deals. They're signing their ATOs. They're getting in. He's back at BU taking classes, waiting to get a contract put in front of him that has a Schedule A bonus or 2 slipped in there. And it's not happening. Now, all of a sudden, it's like the Canucks season's over. Obviously, he wasn't coming to Vancouver. Abbotsford, they only got a couple more games left before their playoff run. Are they going to let this kid sit and go back to school for a 3rd year? Or are they going to let him go back to Sweden and go play for Rogla of the SHL? Like they're playing with fire here with Tommy Wielander, and I just don't get it, especially for a team that's not capped out. They don't have any right shot defensive prospects. They took him 11th overall. What's the holdup?
Yeah. And of the guys in that championship game on BU, when it did look like they were a bit overwhelmed, he was one that didn't look overwhelmed by the moment. He played well.
No.
He was a big factor in the game against Penn State as well. That is a great question. And certainly those, that there's a lot of questions left to be answered about that. And we'll see what ultimately happens. But yeah, you don't want to play with a prospect that is so important to where you're going in the future. You think about a guy that has the capability to provide the support that Quinn Hughes so badly needs on that blue line. He's a guy that should be one of those players that's part of that foundation. I see it in him as a great 2-way player that can really help that team. So we will find out where that all stands. But yes, as you mentioned, the Abbotsford Canucks, they're getting ready for the playoffs. You want to get a guy a couple of reps. They have obviously got a couple of really impressive young players that are going to help that team in the postseason. By the way, the AHL postseason, the Calder Cup playoffs, is going to be slam packed with prospects this year. Sandy Pellikka, Michael Brandstad-Nygård just got over from Sweden. You've got all the guys that Rockford just got, and Korchinski and Levshinov. Come on, Cam. There are going to be so many amazing players that are just kind of taking that next step. And there are even guys that, as their seasons end, will come in. So I'm really excited to see how some of those young guys perform. But keeping in the theme with the playoffs, we've talked about him a lot. We have to keep talking about him because he keeps doing stuff we got to talk about. And that is Gavin McKenna. As we record this, He's heading into game 4 against Prince Albert with Medicine Hat. He has 22 points in 8 games. We said, hey, is he going to break the WHL's postseason scoring record? Well, he's certainly on pace to that. He just might not play enough games if Medicine Hat keeps being as dominant as they are. But Cam, 22 points, and he had not one, but 2 incredible highlights in the last week of goals that he scored, including the Michigan. Was that just a little nod to the future? I don't know. But he scores a Michigan goal in game 3. He continues to do things that just don't make sense to me in terms of his performance, his production, the moves that he makes, the ideas that he has, the speed that he plays. Like, he is unconscious right now.
He is. And did you see Michigan tweeted out? We love to see guys score the Michigan.
I did see that.
They are just having a good time with it. I will say this though, and I know that Chicklets, they're going off about it, is that they say he's already committed to Michigan. I will say that is not true. But if I had to put my house payment on the line, that where he might end up next season, I would put Michigan right at the front of the line. But I have been told in no unquestioned terms that he is fully focused on Medicine Hat right now, and that they are not even talking about schools where he could go or any other opportunities like that. But yes, 22 points in 8 playoff games. Maybe he goes for the record. He's certainly probably going to break the U18 record, the draft -1 record in the West. But this one here, and I tweeted it last night, 122 points over his current 48 game point streak. Nearly 3 points a game over 48 game point streak. Like, this is unconscionable. Like, it's not even really fair what he's doing right now. And yes, a lot of them are like IG worthy post goals too, right? Like, he is scoring these ridiculous goals. He's doing everything. Medicine Hat is rolling. Now they are going to run into the Calgary Hitmen though too, right?
Yeah.
And did you see like Aiden Park's coming now? So he's going USHL, signing with the Hitmen. Okay, going to play with the Hitmen, just airlifting into the playoffs, and then he's off to the NCAA next year. And I believe, is it Michigan too? I think he is going to Michigan as well. Michigan, right? Another Michigan. So it's like, so Calgary is like, that is going to be one mountain to climb for anybody, including Medicine Hat. And that they look like the only ones that maybe you might be able to stop London if they get to the Mem Cup too, which we expect. Man. But Aiden Park, hey, that's a wild story. Like, this is like revolutionary stuff. I had one guy say to chat, it was like, are we going to see like McKenna's going to go to Michigan, play his season, and then be like, okay, season's done. I'll go back to Medicine Hat and airlift in for the playoffs with them too. Like, are we going to see this kind of movement all over the place? Like, it is crazy.
So it's really interesting. Nobody, I talked to some people, nobody really saw it coming that Aiden Park was going to do that. And for the listeners, if you didn't know, Aiden Park, as Cam mentioned, played for Green Bay this year in the USHL. They got bounced from the playoffs 2 days ago. And now he is apparently heading to the Calgary Hitmen to play for them in the playoffs, in the WHL playoffs. You think about deadlines, you think about all these other things that, like what even, so I think this is also one of those rules that is probably going to have to be amended in this new era, because I don't think that the WHL or any league is going to want players parachuting in at the very last minute here. But Aiden Park is a guy who's playing for his draft future as well. He he wants to be drafted. He had a great USHL season. Now he can go into a bigger, playoff situation with a team that has a realistic view of the Memorial Cup this season. It's something we've never seen before. I'm amazed that it's being allowed to happen. But again, if it's not on the books, what are you going to do? So I'm looking forward to finding out more about this whole situation, how it came together. But again, and that's a big time deal. So a lot of things happening, but yeah, you mentioned Gavin McKenna with 3 points a game in this current point streak that he's on. It is unbelievable. And it is also one of the reasons why you will only hear the calls for him to go elsewhere grow louder as we go forward here. But I think there's still that possibility. There's nothing saying like, hey, maybe I could have a 250 point season. Who knows? That's just kind of the crazy thing that we're looking at. On the note of NCAA and CHL, there was big news on this front as well. It was something that we kind of all knew was coming, but it wasn't official yet. Henry Mews, draft pick of the Calgary Flames, played in the OHL and will have junior eligibility next year, has announced that he is committed to play next season at the University of Michigan. It seems like all these highly skilled players are going to Michigan. I thought it was funny because the announcement graphic had him in a half shield. Of course, they don't use half shields in college hockey, but he had a half shield with the Wolverines jersey. Looked kind of funny. But either way, Henry Mews coming, and this is the first instance of, a higher profile player making the public commitment, a guy that is drafted, a guy that has junior eligibility, because as we've talked about in this, the CHL leagues have been more than comfortable promoting the fact that they're overage players, the guys that are aging out, are committing to colleges, but the players that they could still use, they're not as eager to depart, to allow to depart. But this is one of those instances where Henry Mews is making a decision, obviously not signing a contract with Calgary as well, at least at this point. So lots of intrigue there. Any other insights or things that you've heard about this situation, and has it created a little bit of waves based on the fact that, he's a player with junior eligibility going NCAA?
I'll start off by saying I didn't even notice the half visor on that graphic, just because it looked like they gave him one of those big hats that some of the guys wear. That Photoshop, that bucket on his head. Hey, it was like thrice the size of his melon. It was hilarious. That was my favorite part. But no, you're right. That was a big one because it's kind of the first real name brand player to do it with junior eligibility. And I checked around, and nobody's too upset about it. With the CHL, with the OHL, it doesn't seem like, that they understand that this is going to happen. They don't want to lose. They don't want to lose a guy like Gavin McKenna. They don't want to lose their draft eligibles. If they're losing their draft +1, they're losing their draft +2s. That they're able to swallow that. At least they got them to the draft. They got them to be a first rounder or whatever it's going to be. They understand that this is going to become the norm. And for Muse to, he could have signed a contract with Calgary, and got his signing bonus for whatever, $90K. But instead, he can go down there and he could probably maybe make that, in NIL money, and then still get his signing bonus when he comes out of school after next year or the year after, whatever he decides to do. So it's a nice little stopgap. It's a nice little level jump where it's not, going to the American League. And if you can't, going back to junior where you've kind of met the expectations already. So it makes a ton of sense for a lot of players. And the CHL recognizes that. They have to. They understand that this is the new world they're living in. And instead of, trying to fight against the tide, is that instead they'll just swallow up the USHL basically by drafting a whole bunch of American players and making it more, appealing for them to come either north of the border or to some of those American teams too that are playing in the CHL. So they're just going to have to find more players from different areas. And then consequently that trickle down will happen to the USHL, where they're going to have to give prominent roles to younger players that aren't quite, ready to move to the CHL. So it's a massive trickle down effect with these new rules in place. But yeah, we're going to start to see the dam burst a little bit here, probably in the next few weeks too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I also think it's an opportunity for players to create this, leverage and other things, like whether it's, don't trade me, don't, all these other things that, or I want to be traded, or I'll just go this way. There's a lot of different ways it can be used. One note on Henry Mews: 82 points this season between the Ottawa 67s and the Sudbury Wolves, including 14 goals. And that is now what's heading to the University of Michigan. So we'll keep an eye on that. One other kind of offshoot of this is that the OHL priority selection was last week as well. 81 American players, 81 US based players drafted, the most ever in that draft, at least the most in recent memory, a huge jump from the previous season. And that is certainly something that people are monitoring. The under-17 team, the US under-17 team, was named. From my understanding, basically everyone that they wanted, they got. And that is not always the case. And so that the NTDP's brand still pretty strong in that way. You'll never, there's always the potential that players move and, guys will spend 1 year there and go somewhere else. It happens every year, but they got most of the guys they wanted. But now you see 81 players out of US leagues, and there's a couple of different things, a couple of different ways to look at it, Cam. One, it's obviously, trying to open up more avenues to American players to play in the CHL. It's now not a blocker if they want to play college hockey to go there. And some players may ultimately choose that route. It's always good to have options. The other thing on the other hand that I heard from some Canadians was that this is pushing out Canadian kids. This is pushing out guys that would have had the opportunity to be drafted and maybe weren't. So there's always a cause and effect, right? There's always something that kind of happens where things change. But we also saw, the USHL had their press release about the Declaration of Excellence that they're working on with the NHL and USA Hockey. A lot of the things in there are things that I think they're already doing, but will be elevated. I think they're going to be getting some more money as well on top of that, which is what, ultimately will help kind of reinvest in terms of development. But OHL, this felt a little bit more like a statement that there were 81 players from the U.S. drafted, and it does kind of represent this sea change that we're seeing in all of developmental hockey. The OHL also, it should be noted, has one of the largest pools of geographical pools to pull from for their, they have Michigan, they have New York, they have New Jersey, they have a number of these states that are high producing in terms of top level talent. Illinois as well, like they have those. So, but still 81, that's a big number from the OHL, no question.
Yeah, let it out. And I just mentioned this off air too, is that, a kid like Trevor Daly Jr., who made that U17 national team development program team. It's like, I had somebody whisper into my ear that the Sioux Greyhounds, that they were, if he didn't make that team, they were looking at drafting him like 7th overall in the OHL draft.
Yeah.
And then he made that team. And so they took him in the 3rd. But like, I'm told he's in the Sioux, he's training there. Like, I mean, Pops obviously played there, had a illustrious career with the Greyhounds too. So like, maybe it's just coincidental, but it'd be really interesting to see if like a kid snubs the program as a 3rd rounder in the OHL draft to then go and play in the Sioux. Like, where, we might see something like that happen too.
Yeah, the recruiting battles will continue longer than they ever have. I think that there's not going to be this give up, and especially, and it goes both ways too, because just now when a player would go to the CHL, is like that door is closed to the NCAA path. That's no longer closed. So I think that that's going to be another part of it. So we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks as we kind of address this, because but seeing Muse go to the NCAA, seeing the number of Americans picked in the OHL draft, seeing the USHL make their announcement, we'll see more as we go forward here. But things are changing, and these are the first kind of little glimmers of how they're changing. So we will wait and see more as the summer progresses, but a lot more to be found out about that. And obviously the Gavin McKenna situation will be top of mind. I did want to switch gears though. I want to talk a little bit quickly about the Calder race. We're obviously a prospects podcast. We talk about the young guys that are the future of the game. The Calder is the award that goes to the future of the game. Ballots are out in for the PHWA that has the voting power on this award. And we talked about it before. I feel like the conversation has shifted dramatically towards one player. Is it still, we've talked about how close it was for us personally, but where is your lean? Who do you think, not who do you think should, but who do you think will win the Calder this year?
When you put up more points as a rookie back than Mr. Raymond Bourque, I'm giving you the Calder nod. Okay? I'm giving it. Lane's got it. He's got it sewn up at this point. Tied for the most apples ever. What did he end up? 5th, I think, all time for rookie blue liners, just passing Bourque. Ray Bourque.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like it's unfortunately, like I love Dustin Wolf. I love the story. I love the kid. I've been rooting for him for years. I think he had a tremendous season, quality start rate of, in like the high 50% range, like a 9-10 save percentage. He was awesome for Calgary. Almost dragged them into the postseason. They came up a little bit short. If they're in the East, they would have got in. But, even if they got in, it's still Lane's. I do believe that too. And, I don't actually vote on this. I'm not a member. I don't pay my union dues. But if I was voting for that all-rookie team, I posted this out there too. It's Celebrini, it's Mishkov, and I'm giving the 3rd spot to Will Smith, maybe partially because I love the bromance that Celebrini and him have going on over there. They're cooking. I love it. On the blue line, obviously, it's Lane. My boy Denton Mateychuk. It's a little light on that 2nd D spot, so I'm giving it to Denton, and then obviously Wolf. And those are the best rookies in their positions this year. No disrespect to Cutter Gauthier, great year. Marco Kasper had himself a strong rookie season too. Logan Stankoven, who I love, but for me, those are the 6 guys going to be on that all rookie team.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable in general what we've seen, and you look all time seasons, in terms of players that are Lane's age under 21. He's a top 10 all time in that category. 60 assists, tied with Larry Murphy for the most ever. 66 total points for him. For Lane, also only -2, not bad for a guy that we don't, plus minus is what it is, but still, they were a better team with him than without him. And you just look at the U21 seasons all time. The most ever was Paul Coffey, who had already kind of been in it a little bit, with 89 points, but 66 points for Lane Hutson. There's nobody else in the Drew Doughty with 59 points. I mean, pretty much everyone else is in the 80s and 70s, and Bobby Orr, in terms of what that is. So I think that's also the case for me. Lane Hutson has defied every odd, that has defied every criticism, and has made himself one of the premier defensemen. We're going to talk about how far he can take this. But I mean, and that's the thing, is like, you have to have a special season. The crazy part is I keep coming back to is Lane Hutson and Macklin Celebrini were on the same dang team last year. Like, it's like, how, like, what is happening? So like, when we talk about college hockey and where it's going, the 2 best rookies in the league were on the same team. But I mean, you also have to tip your cap to Michkov. Awesome season, really turned it on towards the end too. But great call on Will Smith, who at the beginning of the season, I was like, they might have to send him to the AHL. They might have to send him to the World Juniors. I don't think it's going to work. Huge credit to that young man. It just speaks to how good his hockey sense is, that he was able to make the adjustment, because physically he still has a ways to go, but he made the adjustment mentally, and it really mattered. So lots of great stuff. Calder race. What a fun year. Great rookie class. Next year, let's unless they've already put Demidov's name on the trophy, let's see how next year plays out. All right, Cam, let's get into our bread and butter. Let's get into the place where we like to live, which is the NHL draft. And this was a big week in the draft. Next week will be the under-18 Worlds, but every year before the draft list comes out, or before the Worlds happens, the Central Scouting releases their final draft list. You can argue with the timing if you would like to, but the top two guys are Matthew Schaefer in North America, Anton Frendel in Europe, Misa number 2 North America, Hagen's number 3 North America, and then things get interesting from there. Not interesting in a bad way, but just you start saying, okay, well, we know that the consensus is dropping off around a lot of these players. Jake O'Brien, number 4, Radim Murtka at number 5, Porter Martone down to 6th, and Caleb Desnoyers at 7, Roger McQueen 8, Kashawn Aitchison 9, Carter Bear 10. So we'll give you the top 10 from North America in that. As you looked at the list, as you kind of digest it, where do you see the biggest surprise in terms of where Central Scouting sees things versus where you see things?
I have many thoughts, but I do every year. So just a couple of them off the top of my head. I like Jake O'Brien at 4. I've been saying it for a while. He's my sneaky pick to slip into the top 5. I think that teams know that some teams absolutely love this kid. I love him too. I'm a bit on an island at EP on how much I really like him. I know some of the guys there don't as much as me. I think he could be like Wyatt Johnson. Like he could be special. He could be really good.
That'd be a great top end for him for sure.
Right. I think Martone is getting a little bit at 6. It's like, I don't love going like Murtka over him. I don't even know if I love going O'Brien over him. So that one's a little bit, but Kashawn Aitchison at 9, sign me up. Probably my favorite player in the whole class. I've been banging the table for him all year. So I do love that. I like Brady Martin sliding up to 11. I said it in our Slack for EP yesterday. He might be, I think he is the best technical hitter I've ever seen at his age. He hits and he hits hard and he doesn't chase, and he just he is so strong, got that farm boy strength. So I love Brady Martin at 11. Jackson Smith at 13, do not like. Do not like. I might have a hard time passing on him at 5 or 6. Like, he is so good, 6'3", mobile. He's only gotten better all year. He has offense. He has great potential defensively to be a stifling defensive player too. I think he could be a number 1. Him falling to 13, do not like. Jack Nesbitt at 15, too rich for my blood. And then Cameron Schmidt, you're going to do him dirty like that, and you're going to put him 43. The kid scored that many goals this year, basically, to lead all draft eligibles in the West. I know he's undersized, but putting him at 43 is saying that he's a pick in the 60s. You going to pick that kid in the 60s? Is he a third rounder potentially for you? No, I don't think so. I think they went a little dirty on our guy Cameron Smith there too.
Yeah, and we'll get a chance to see him. He was added to Canada's roster for the Under-18 Worlds. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, about some of the players that we'll be able to watch from this list that are on Canada's roster for this year. I mean, I think the other things that stand out to me is the things that we already knew. It was going to be a down year for the Americans. I think that we'll see maybe the probably the lowest number of American first round draft picks in the last several years in this class, although you never really know some of these players. I think guys like Will Horkoff and Cullen Potter in the 20s on this list, to me, is a bit high. They are both going to be at the Under-18 Worlds as well, getting welcomed back to the NTDP after leaving early to go play college. I think that really, though, Cam, and this I think it's been the same for us all year. The drop off to me, as it became more evident just looking at how Central Scouting views things versus how I view things versus how whoever else. When you get past, they have Jackson Smith at 13, but once you get past that point, it feels like, okay, anything is possible. Cameron Schmidt is a great example. Some teams are going to have him way back. Some teams are going to have him top maybe 20, so it's like there's going to be a lot of kind of those kinds of conversations. I think in this year's class, there are so few sure things. There are so few complete players. There are so few guys that you really want to put your stamp of approval on, that you are going to potentially go for that tools swing. You're going to, and that's where guys like potentially Cameron Schmidt could slip down, when you're having that tool swing where you're saying, I want the bigger guy. I want the guy that has, big guy skating ability. Cause you look at some of these players and you're just not sure. I think the one thing like Jackson Smith, he's an interesting one for me because I feel like they're the size, the skill, like I've been on the fence about him on the hockey sense front. Just in terms of the pure decision-making, how he reads things defensively. But again, when you have a class like this, I think it makes sense for him to be in that upper range of that top 15 for sure. But yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of these, I feel like some of the guys that played college hockey got a little bit more inflated as well. Sasha Boumediene, he was also kind of a guy, he's 18th on their list. I think there's a lot more to learn about him. I don't necessarily think that this year was a great showcase for him in terms of what he ultimately can be. He held his own. I like the way that he played at the Frozen Four, actually. I thought that he held his own better than I expected him to against even Western Michigan, but he was overmatched. And that's, again, youngest player in college hockey. You have to make those kind of decisions. But one thing I wanted to ask you before also is, Joshua Ravensbergen was named the number 1 goalie. Very quiet end to his season. We've talked about him as a first rounder this year, as the guy most likely to go in the first round. Do you still like him there? Do you still like picking a goal? Like I'm always reluctant to pick a goalie in the first round. Even like, going back to some of these years, I think the only one I was really super bullish on was Askarov. And again, it's been a process with him. Where do we think Ravensbergen ends up? And that's one of the things about this list. The goalies are separated out, so you really don't know where a group like Central Scouting thinks he should slot in the actual draft order.
Yeah. I'll just touch on a couple things there. First is that, you mentioned like some of the NCAA guys getting a little bit inflated, and I'm totally with you on that. Like, they've got Logan Hensler ahead of Jackson Smith, and I can't, no disrespect to Logan Hensler, but he might be like the most vanilla defenseman there is, right? And he might translate really, really well because of that, just kind of across the board, decent skills, 6'2", but you give me the high upside kid in Jackson Smith, like 100 times out of 100. And then Boumediene too, like, we were talking about Tom Wielander before. He basically had to babysit him all season, right? As the youngest D-man. And so like he wasn't able to have any freedom to really operate offensively because he had to be there when Sasha was being overwhelmed. And he did get better throughout the season though. But as far as Ravensburgen goes, I love him. I really like the kid. I think he's big. He is calm. He doesn't get shook too often, but you're right. It was a bit of a struggle this year in general, but down the stretch too.
Yeah.
I think that there's enough there with that size and that pedigree and the flashes, and his draft -1 season was very, very good. I think that there is going to be a team that's going to be in the 20s that's going to look at him and be like, in 3-4 years, we could have ourselves like a locked in starter. And those aren't easy to come by. You do get them, but previously I thought that maybe a team might take a dance on him in the teens. Maybe it's going to be the end of the first round now. But back in the day, right? We saw a kid like Thatcher Demko who was miles better as a draft eligible prospect. He even slipped to round 2, right? We see these guys that historically that's kind of where it happens. Day 2 starts, boom, goalie run. Right? The teams are a little more. And so we might see that this year too, that maybe he's like pick 1 on day 2 or something like that as well. Now, just because of that kind of the difficulty down the stretch for him too. But I do think he still has like clear NHL starter upside, potentially like a good one too.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that he's, for me, it's just, I think the risk factor of betting on the goalie is there. This season though, I would say in other draft years where it's close between, if it's close for you between a forward and a defenseman, I would take the forward or the defenseman, and I would do that anyway. But I do think that for a class like this, where there is really this kind of jumble from basically 15 on, there's a lot of different ways it can go. And I think that he's one of those guys. When I talk about when you're taking swings on tools, that's one of the guys where I feel like it's a bit more of a swing. And just to reiterate, they played Portland in the playoffs. They end up winning 2, losing 4. He had an .896 save percentage, which was below his season average of .901, but he did win 33 of 51 games during the season for Prince George. So very intrigued by him. And again, it's just not a year where I feel like you have a lot of sure things in the goaltending department. He's far and away the best goalie option available. And the interesting thing about that is how early we've seen goalies get selected. Once that first top guy goes, it seems like every team is on a goalie. And I'm not always certain that that's how their list was when we see those goalie runs in like the early second round. But I do think that we could see Ravensburgen in there. We're going to keep the draft talk going, though, my friend, because there's plenty to talk about the draft. And there's going to be a lot to see for draft-eligible players. And that is, of course, the World Under-18 Championship in Frisco and Allen, Texas. It begins next week. Both Cam and I will be there to watch players live and to get some of those evaluations in, some very important live viewings. We're going to start the conversation with Team Canada. They have announced, I believe, 19 or so players that have come or maybe a few more with the most recent additions. Each team can can roster 25. They can have 3 goalies. They can have an extra forward, extra defenseman, however they want to structure it. And obviously, they will be adding to this list after the second round of the WHL playoffs, or the CHL playoffs, rather. Here's, Michael Misa was invited and to camp, not able to participate in camp because of injury. Is he going to be well enough to potentially come, or what is happening here with Michael Misa? Is it over? Is the dream dead for us, Cam, to go watch him and see him live?
I'll say this. I don't think the dream is over. I had one NHL source of mine say that he's like, I don't think he's going. And that might have been just a gut feeling on his part. I think that he is continuing to rehab from a minor injury and is progressing, and they'll just kind of have to wait and see what the doctors say pretty much, right? Like if he's cleared to go, I think he could go. And we're going to get into a little bit later in the show here on whether it makes sense for him to go or not. But I don't think the dream is dead to have Michael Misa there. But it's nice to see that we got Cameron Schmidt added, because that was someone I reported got invited to camp and then he wasn't on the camp list. And there was a reason for that too. A personal reason that he declined and didn't look like he was going to be able to come. And then obviously some things changed or his mindset shifted and he's decided he is going to go, which is huge. Like, he is a very, very, at this level, like, he's a difference maker. So he's going to instantly become like a first liner on that Canadian team.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very big help to them, and I'm really intrigued to see him. You know, we saw him at that NTDP versus CHL game as well, and so, or those two games, and so it's an opportunity for him to continue to build off of that, and I think it's great to see him there. Another couple of the guys that are of particular draft interest, you know, the Brady Martin, who you mentioned, Jackson Smith, who we've talked about, Braden Coots, Cameron Schmidt being added. Obviously, a lot of guys for next year's draft. The other thing, Jack Ivankovic is going to be there as well, the goaltender who played at the World Juniors. He'll be, you know, should be the number one goalie for this team, and obviously had a great Hlinka-Gretzky Cup, so I think there's high expectations for him. But a lot of 08s on this team, a lot of guys that are 2026 draft eligible. I think one of the guys that, you know, I'm most interested to see live, and certainly in the setting, is Ryan Rubrek. You know, just to kind of see how what charge he's able to take here of Team Canada. But who are maybe the guy or two guys that you're really looking forward to seeing here, whether they're draft eligible this year or next, that you think really have an opportunity to take a step in this tournament and maybe, you know, see where things go from there?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of them. I'm like you. I'm excited to see Rubrek too, because I haven't had eyes on him live. You know, player Braden Coots, who I think is a little undervalued in this draft class. He is quite good. Didn't have a ton to work with in Seattle this year in the West. He has speed. He has great two-way ability. He has like the ability to like have a ton of pizzazz. The Hlinka, really excited. He was supposed to be the top line center there with McKenna, kind of got injured, lost his spot, came back, wasn't 100%, didn't show out. So I think this is like a really great opportunity for Braden Coots to come and really pop and put kind of an exclamation point on his draft eligible season and maybe bump him up. You know, Central Scouting had him in like the 20s. I think that he could be somebody that, like, a team that just missed the playoffs, you know, a Calgary, a Vancouver, a Utah, something like that, he could be a real option for them in that kind of like mid-teen zone. So looking forward to that. There's a couple other kids too that I'm fully told that depending on what happens in that Victoria Royals series, if they get ousted, that Keaton Verhoff, top pick for 2026, a blue liner, that he would be joining the team there too. Cole Reshny, another Royals player who's, you know, had just a tremendous playoffs and a huge point producing season in Victoria this year too. So kind of rooting against them maybe a little bit, maybe rooting against Everett. Maybe we'll get Landon DuPont. Maybe I'm just keeping that out there. I'm just keeping that vibe out there. I'd love to get Landon DuPont there. I'll mention two other names though. A couple of young kids there, Beckham Edwards, you know, and Sarnia, not a great team, ripped off 25 goals. He's a good player, but Pierce Bowie, okay, 30 goals, 50 plus points, led all OHL rookies in goals and points. He's a player. He's a player to watch too for 2026. And so I'm excited to see a bunch of these kids that play on the L that I never get to see live unless it's internationally or I'm on a trip like that CHL prospect team or something like that. So yeah, I'm hoping to look at all these kids and get a kind of a barometer test for next year. Get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Canada, the defending gold medalist after beating USA in dramatic fashion last year, with Gavin McKenna and Tija Ginla and the rest, Carter George and who have you doing their thing. And that brings me to USA, which as we record this, the night before, Team USA played a pre-tournament game in Texas against Norway. Norway. I repeat, this was against Norway. USA lost that game 4-3. They had a 3-1 lead with 1:21 to go. They lost to Norway. Which brings me to my next point. There are a lot of outsiders from the NTDP. Usually a lot of the bulk of this roster is going to come from the NTDP U18 team. We've talked about it before. It's probably one of the weakest teams that they've had at the program in recent memory, maybe as long as I've been doing this. In terms of draft potential, in terms of competitiveness and things of that nature, they've struggled throughout the year. they have made some significant outside additions. We talked about a few of them already. Blake Fiddler from the Edmonton Oil Kings is on the team. He's probably already on their top pairing based on our first line chart we saw. Cullen Potter, Will Horkoff both played in college hockey this year. Potter with Arizona State, Horkoff for half a season with Michigan. Both are back on the team. Teddy Mutrin from the Chicago Steel, Ben Keevan from the Des Moines Buccaneers, and Chase Reed from the Sioux Greyhounds, all from outside. They've also added U17 Sammy Nelson, Mikey Burchild, and Casey Mutrin. So they've got 2 Mutrins for the price of 1. But they also have now this roster that is significantly different than the roster we've seen compete against the U18s. Now, they are carrying a couple extra players heavy. They will make cuts. They have to get down to 25. So there are going to be players, potentially even some of these outside players that don't make it, though I think it's likely these players help them enough to make that change. USA's got a lot of work to do here. They've got to kind of save face a little bit from what has been a really rocky season. Do they have a chance? I mean, really, this is a little bit more like, it looks a little bit more like a Hlinka team when they don't have the NTDP players playing. They've got a lot of these guys that did play in the Hlinka and others. And so it's going to be like, this feels strange to me to see a roster with this many outside players on it. And also not only that, but that it was so warranted. And I will say there are some significant injuries on this US team that have led to these players being added, but there's more, roster needs. So, I mean, what are we thinking about this US squad here, Cam?
I'm hoping they can be competitive, because if they can't, this is like Canada, Sweden, and the tournament's going to have a lot less pizzazz to it. But I do, I think this is a good opportunity, right? Blake Fiddler, captain that U.S. team at the Hlinka, was very, very good for them. Didn't have like the greatest season for the Oil Kings. So I think that, again, another opportunity, like I mentioned, for Braden Coots to really pop off on a big stage, airlifting into this team, finally like locking it in. I'm an American. I'm going to play internationally with the Americans as soon as he plays this IIHF game. Cullen Potter, very good player. You mentioned Ball. I think Will Horkoff, big, heavy player, really going to help this team. Like the team that they had all season it wouldn't have been able to contend at this tournament. But adding these guys, if they can find, Ben Keevan's had a really strong finish to his season too. Chase Reed really interests me. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing him too. Right, like 6'2", 185 pounds, right shot D, was playing in the NA, jumps over to the Sioux and puts up over a point a game as a draft -1 defender. Like, I am intrigued by this kid. So I think like that's a sneaky ad right there that could really kind of bolster that blue line for them. I'm hoping they can keep it competitive, right? Keep it in there and really kind of push Canada and Sweden and be a team that can really be in the mix anyways. Like, I don't expect them to win it, but I'm hoping that they can come together with all those kind of imports into the team, which is what basically Canada has to do every year, right? It's a mishmash of players that come together and just try to make it happen, where the Americans usually come in, they're like, haha, we've been playing together for 2 years, suckers, like we got all this chemistry. Well, they don't have it anymore. So it's an even keel in that regard, but the talent level isn't as even as we'd like to see. But yes, I'm hopeful that some of these imports into the team, and they're mostly the ones that I want to see the most too anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm really excited to see it, and I think that makes the competitive factor better. It makes it more intriguing for all of us to watch them play. So I'm intrigued by that. What is also intriguing is Sweden's roster. However, Anton Frundell and Djurgården they advanced the Allsvenskan Championship Series. That series, unless it ends quickly, we won't see them. Unless it's a sweep, and it's a sweep for the other, in a losing effort, I don't think we're going to see them. Otherwise, I think, if you win a championship, you deserve the opportunity to celebrate that with your teammates and maybe not come to the under 18 Worlds. That said, fortuitously, Frölunda was knocked out, and Ivar Stenberg, who's one of the top prospects for 2026, will be there. We expect to see Viggo Bjork, even though he's Djurgården owned, but he's not been in the playoffs for them. So there's a lot of that. Sweden absolutely is a team that we should be expecting to compete for gold at this tournament. I think they are a legitimate threat for that. Any other players on Sweden that you're looking forward to seeing beyond the guys that we just mentioned?
Well, I mean, if Frundell doesn't show up, like I feel like he's ducking me personally. Like I'm going to take this as a personal affront, right? This would be tournament number 4 that I've gone to, that we have gone. Well, actually, you weren't at the Hlinka with me,
Yeah.
but that I've tried to see this kid live, and I just cannot get a live view on him to save my life. So they won their first game there yesterday, I believe, and he had a couple apples in that game too. So doesn't look like it's going to be a sweep. You know, it might be a reverse, you know, but we'll see if they can lose it in 5. But no, that's a bummer. I have been told that Jakub Wozniak, despite being, you know, with Lulia there, that they've been healthy scratching him. He's not even as their 13th forward, that he will be loaned regardless. I think actually, yeah, today is the day they're flying to Texas, and he's on that flight. So he will be there. He's Wozniak. Yeah. So that's a big pickup for them too. Yeah. So I do like that. And another look at him. He was at the U18s last year. We got to see him as an underager there too. So this year he's obviously expected to play a bigger role. Ivar, though, he's going to be the man. And Vigo, those two kids ripped up the J20. And then, you know, Ivar in the SHL, you know, broke some records there too for draft -1 player. So really excited about those guys. It is a bit of a younger team, but I agree with you that I think they have the goods to compete. And Boumedidine's going to be there as well. So they do have a kid who's playing NCAA hockey, you know, that has some experience at that level and going all the way to the Natty Championship final game too. So no, I'm really looking forward to that Canada-Sweden final that we'll be having on May 3rd or whatever there in Frisco.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think it's going to be outstanding. A couple other names just to note: Milton Gastrin, you know, Eddie Genborg, Victor Klingsell, guys that have had some success internationally for them, guys that are up on the list. And as you mentioned, Boumediene being there as well. Really, really solid players. Looking forward to watching that. So that's, you know, those are the top 3 teams I think that are going to carry the most interest for the draft. Obviously, Czechoslovakia, there's going to be plenty to see there. But
will be
yeah, so there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot to watch. We'll be there. We will be coming to you from Texas next time we gather for this here podcast, and we'll have some data to share or some visions to share with you. But let's move on to our Beyond Belief segment. Let's have a little fun, and we're gonna buzz through these quick, but we have some juicy ones this week. I'm looking forward to it. All right, my friend, I'm gonna kick us off, and we talked about our Calder Cup, you know, or not Calder Cup, our Calder Trophy favorites. Lane Hutson looking like a favorite, 60 plus assists this year. Cam Robinson, Lane Hutson will be a 100-point defenseman at some point in his career.
That's as juicy as that barbecue we're going to be eating next week, my man. Beyond belief, but it is so hard to hit triple digits as a defenseman, right? Cale hasn't done it. Quinn hasn't done it. Like, and they are the benchmark for like ultra electric offensive defenseman. And you know, despite Lane out kicking them both as rookies, I just it's so difficult. I'm gonna say that no, but 90, sure, I could see 90. I'm just gonna say that he doesn't. I don't know if we're gonna see a guy hit 100 again, right? Like on the blue line, it's possible, and if it is, his name's probably Cale Makar. But it's I'm gonna go with Beyond Belief. How about you?
I think that Cale is going to do it for one. I do think that, but here's why it to me it is beyond belief. But the reason there's a glimmer of it is because look at what Montreal is building. Look at what they are doing right now. Yeah. And as a defenseman, just throw the puck up at this point. You know, you're going to get your points just on exit passes at this, you know, like, you know, it's going to be, so I think that Montreal is building something. He's going to have a supporting cast that allows it. It is, again, it's out of this world, but I just wanted to tease that Montreal Canadiens fan base just a little bit, because for one, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but everyone was like, he's never going to hold up. He just played an 82 game season. He's fine. So
he's fine.
Look out. Anyway, I turn it back to you, my friend.
Let's get him like a big boomer on his pair. Somebody who can just be dropping clappers and he just has to feed it into their wheelhouse, like at even strength. Obviously, he's going to have that on the power play. But if all he has to do is slide it over into somebody's wheelhouse at the point at even strength, that's going to jack up those apples a little bit more. Maybe.
That's true.
All right. To you, my friend, Canada, this one's a little easier, will defend their gold at the U18 Worlds. Back-to-backs.
I'm going to say it's beyond belief, and it's only because I think Sweden is loaded for bear for this thing. Now, they have had some really weird losses this year internationally, but I do think with the young guys, I think Canada's really young. That's part of the issue here. I think they've got as good a chance. Jack Ivankovic could be the X factor for them.
Winner, chicken dinner,
yeah. Yeah. So I'm going beyond belief, but that's mainly because I look at Sweden's roster with or without Frundell. I see a team that's played a lot together. I see a team that has a ton of skill. I see a team that has a little more size. I see a team that has capability. Like, will the goaltending hold up? That is a real question for me. But I think it'll be a Canada-Sweden gold medal game. And I think I like the Swedes, who have won at the under 18 a little bit in recent years. But yeah, I'm going with the more, Sweden's always talked, you can't win the big one. I think that's one they're going to win.
Okay. I'm going to say not only is it a true statement, but they're going to do it in decisive fashion with or without Michael Misa. Now, you put Michael Misa in there. He's the best player in the tournament. Without him, now you got to do a little bit more committee scoring. Schmitty, Braden Martin, Braden Coots, those guys. But I think Canada is it might even like play with their food a little bit at this tournament. And that might be my patriotism kicking in here. But I like them to repeat.
All right. It's going to be an intense one. Let's get it back here. This is something we kind of touched on, but we really didn't get into it. So let's get into it now. The U18s can only hurt Michael Misa's stock, not help it, if he is indeed healthy enough to play in the tournament.
It's a true statement. It's a true statement because so what? So he goes there and he rips off 20 points. Okay. Well, so what? He should. He just put up 130 in the OHL, right? He doesn't put up 20 points. Well, what's wrong? What's wrong with Mies? So I don't think it can improve his stock. He could put up 30 points, and I don't think that's going to move the needle where now it's like, okay, now he's for sure better than Matthew Schaefer. No, I think right now he is 1-2, and all he can go do there is maybe struggle and have people be like, oh, well, remember what James Haggins did at this tournament last year? Remember what Porter Martone did at this tournament last year as being younger than he is right now? Maybe start to creep in some doubts there. I don't really think that there's a huge upside other than getting an opportunity to hang out with us in Frisco for him to head down there. I think it'd probably be best for him to just settle it down and be ready for the combine in June, despite me wanting him to be there to help out my prediction that they'll play with their food.
Yeah. And I think, the fact that he was listed on the camp roster and not, it's an injury situation that, every question he's going to get at the combine is going to be, why didn't you go to Hlinka? Why didn't you go to, go to under 18 Worlds? You could have played, like those are going to be, that's where he'll get challenged. And I think he'll be fine with that though. And like, honestly, I agree with you. And I think that the reason that I agree is because this tournament in this year, in this season, is not a great showcase for, especially if Frundell isn't there too, like, it's like, you don't get that one-to-one comparison to see the distance between the two players. If there is such, it is something where normally I would say go because I want to see him there. But at the same time, I agree with you. I think that it only hurts as opposed to help. Because if you don't produce at that, if you don't perform, then all those questions come and you've any opportunity to be the number one pick is lost at that point.
Yep. Okay, so last one for you here. I came up with this one despite not having an answer to it myself, but very juicy. Gavin McKenna will have a better career than long-lost cousin Connor Bedard.
This is a really hard one. As soon as you put it on here, I was like, dang, man. My gut. This is my gut. My gut is that it's beyond belief. It's a gut feeling, not because I don't believe Gavin McKenna is a special player. I do believe that he is. I don't think that we have seen even an inkling of what Connor Bedard is going to be at the NHL level. I think that there's a little more edge to Connor than there is to Gavin. I think there's a little bit more fire. Not to say that Gavin doesn't have, like, this is, again, we're talking like incremental differences here. We're talking about, but having been around Bedard, having seen him, and I've been around McKenna as well. I just feel like Connor has some edge to him that's different, that will get better. And his numbers being what they have been with the Blackhawks, that is going to change, I think, as soon as next season. I think we're looking at him breaking out next season. I think he will be a perennial 50 goal scorer in the NHL. The best is yet to come. Both of them are going to have to continue to get physically stronger. Both of them are going to have to continue to add more elements to their game. I think Connor is actually a little bit more of a complete player. Not that I would call him a complete player in the way that, like, say, Macklin Celebrini is, but I'm going to lean Connor in this one, just because I think that I've just seen a little more, even though the numbers are what they are with Gavin. I mean, but I've never felt less certain about it than I do right now, based on what we've seen from him in the playoffs.
Yeah, I as boring as it is going to be here for bad radio, but I agree. I agree with everything you said. I think that people are really underestimating what Bedard's going to do in the coming years. And I'm like you, think that next year it's pop time. It's that everyone's going to be like, oh, right, this is the kid that was scoring 70 plus goals as draft eligible and tearing up and setting records for Canada at the World Juniors. This is the player that we were waiting, several years for to get drafted first overall. And it starts with, that third year can often be a big jump year for super elite players. Sometimes it's fourth for the guys that aren't as elite. But he's going to get some help. Chicago cannot run him out there again by himself. So they absolutely have to go do something, or a few things, to get some insulation around him, some serious players, whether it's going out and offering, the farm to Mitch Marner or Sam Bennett and getting that hard skill. They're going to go do some stuff, packaging some of their young players. I mean, Frankie Nazar has burst down the scene here at the end of this season. I think he's going to be a big player for them long term. They do have some pieces, but they also have some other pieces they could package up and make a trade for. So I'm like you. I think he's going to be a 50 goal man. I think he's going to be a 100-point player. He plays the middle of the ice. He is a little bit firmer than Gavin. Gavin on that playmaking winger. I'm with you. I think that Connor will end up having a slightly better career, slightly. I do think that they're both going to be superstars, though, and that there is that small chance that Gavin ends up playing with like an elite goal scorer, either in the middle or on the other side, and will just like throw up 100 assists in a season, though, too, like in Nikita Kucherov. And so there is that small chance, but goals pay the bills. And if Connor's going to put up 40, 50 plus a year, I think, and play down the middle, I think that that's going to give him just a slight edge.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think the goals is a real separating factor between the two players. All right. So as we head into this tournament that we're about to go to, we're gonna kick it over to our you have to pick one. And my thought here is that, basically there's a great draft event at the beginning of the season and a pretty great draft event at the end of the season. Very similar in how they are. There's the Hlinka-Gretzky Cup, which Canada will often send its best to, or always sends its best to. The under 18 Worlds, where USA will put its best roster on the paper in the tournament, and Canada kind of gets whoever. So as an event, and you can qualify this however you want, whether it's as a draft event, whether it is as just a tournament in general or development, whatever, you just explain it as you answer it. You have to pick one. Hlinka-Gretzky Cup, under 18 World Championship.
No brainer for me. U18s all single day. I know you're going to probably say the same thing. You didn't even join me in Edmonton last summer. It's like you're pulling me out. I just got my first little break in July, taking a couple weeks off. And then all of a sudden I got to go. I got one kid's birthday at the beginning of August. I got to take off immediately. I got to go watch hockey when it's 30 degrees outside. Nobody's in the barn. Nobody cares about my tweets at this time. Nobody's reading my articles. And then I got to come back and I got another kid's birthday like 2 days later. U18s, everybody's in it. We're gearing up for the draft. Everybody's looking for somebody to pop. Playoffs are going on. It's just hockey. Everyone's mind is on it. It's great. It's great for business, for clicks, for views. It's great for the players. People don't remember. I mean, sometimes they do. Vasily Podkolzin rode his Hlinka-Gretzky production all the way to a top 10 pick.
Sure he did.
But it's like, often people don't remember. We always say people don't forget, but people don't always remember the Hlinka-Gretzky back in August when it's time to pick in late June. So U18s all the way. Plus, I don't have to go to Edmonton again. Sorry, Edmonton.
Yeah, well, it is under 18s. It's obviously the tournament that I've been most familiar with. Starting going back to the start of my career, 2009 under 18 Worlds was the first one I went to, and it's always been that. The reason for me, it more mimics the World Juniors. It gives us that
Mhm.
flavor. It feels like it has more gravitas. It feels like there's more interest, as you mentioned. And there's opportunity. There have been some classic under 18 World Championship games. There have been some classic Hlinka-Gretzky games, but those don't really stick in my memory as well as what we've seen over the years. Thinking of like Jonathan Lehkomäki against USA, or thinking about just Ryan Leonard against Sweden just a couple of years ago. Like all these different things that we come to know. The under 18 Worlds is a great tournament. The other thing that I will say, neither of them are as good without Russia. And we know why Russia is not there and won't be there and shouldn't be there. But neither event, you talk to enough scouts, you're like, it's really hard.
We miss
What,
Russia.
you're going to see a lot of records broken at these events, and there have been over the last 2 years. Why are they being
Yep.
broken? You took one of the best teams out of the circulation. So put an asterisk next to them if you like, but that's what is going on here at the under 18 Worlds. Whether Russia is there or not, still is the event of my preference, and it's certainly the one that we've seen. And we saw Gavin McKenna break out there last year. There'll be plenty of star power. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to eat a lot of barbecue. That's where things are going to go.
Great.
We got to wrap
Great.
things up here quickly. Just real quick, Cam, what we got coming up on Elite Prospects?
Yeah, we're gonna be. It's all U18s full bore ahead. We just dropped our rankings though, so go check that out. Download the app, and then go read the rankings. Okay, we got those out there. We're a little different than Central Scouting, so you can read our write up on that. But yeah, we're gonna do a bunch of meet the teams, so you'll be able to read all about every player on every team at the U18s. Myself, Sean Shapiro, will be down there covering it. He's going to ditch me for the medal round, so I'll be flying solo. Might sneak out for one of those Stars Avalanche playoff games, kind of circling Game 5 there in Dallas. Chris, maybe you want to come join too. That could be a lot of fun.
I might hitch a ride.
Right? That sounds like a good time. Hey, I think we might have to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and then obviously you and I will be down there covering it next week. It's gonna be a great time. We'll be putting out a ton of content.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be getting together down there to inform the people and the masses of what's happening at the Under 18 World Championship and talking about the NHL Draft. Also, everybody, it's playoff time for FloHockey. ECHL playoffs, the Kelly Cup, they are underway as of yesterday. The Calder Cup playoffs start next week in the AHL, so we will also talk a little bit about that next time we get together, because there are going to be a boatload of NHL prospects there. Make sure you're signed up for that FloHockey subscription. We got a ton of stuff going there. If you missed it last week, you can still watch the Gabriel Landeskog comeback games on our YouTube page, and then a lot of draft coverage coming up, live on the ground coverage from the Under 18 World Championship from me, a lot of analysis and things like that. But we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to get a lot done, and we are going to continue to push toward the NHL Draft, which is June 27th. It seems so far away, yet it is so very close. We'll also be talking draft lottery when that happens as well. Maybe some mock drafts, maybe some ranking shows, lots of specials coming your way as we get geared up for the NHL Draft. But that is going to do it. Want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our producer, Ever. We want to also thank all of you for listening. Make sure you're leaving a kind rating and review. Also want to thank Wonderful Pistachios, our presenting sponsor of Called Up the Prospects podcast, and a delightful snack, if I do say so myself. And that is going to do it for this week's episode of Called Up the Prospects podcast, presented by Wonderful Pistachios. My name is Chris Peters. For my pal Cam Robinson, we will see you next time.